everyone. Welcome to Grounded with Jon Tester and Maritza Giorgio. How are you, Senator?
Well, I'm trying to feed the world, Maritza. It's a hard job, but somebody's got to do it. I'm out on the tractor right now, killing weeds. Yeah, harvest is done. We finished harvest Sunday, so things are looking up.
Okay, well, that's fabulous. So, yes, we have more tractor time with Tester today, which means I'm going to have to mute his microphone when our guest speaks because that's just how we roll. We're very professional here at Grounded. And joining us today as our guest on Grounded is former ambassador to Japan, Rahm Emanuel, who also was White House Chief of Staff under President Obama. He also served as mayor of Chicago. And before that, he was in the state house in Illinois. So welcome, Ambassador Emanuel. Good to be with you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Can I correct my resume?
yeah, he was
Yes.
also in the U.S. House of Representatives.
Yeah, I was never in the state house in Springfield. I was the state house I was in the U.S. Congress.
Oh my gosh. Why did I get that wrong? See, look at
okay.
that. I'm so sorry.
Right out of the
Don't worry
chute,
about it.
is screwed.
Right out of the chute.
I mean, what can I say?
Maritza, we made a pledge. Let's just blame Tester.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Wow.
Let's just blame Twitter. Yeah, my bad. My bad. I didn't get enough sleep or didn't have enough caffeine. Okay. Well, Ambassador, on that embarrassing note, thank you for being with us. I know you were in the house because one of my first things I want to ask you about is if it's true that you tried to get Jon Tester to run for the House over the Senate in 2006.
Oh, that's total mythology. Yes, that's true.
Tester,
Now,
you're unmuted.
I've got a question for you, Rom. Now, did you do that because somebody asked you to do that, or because you just knew I was this outstanding, incredibly good public servant who might have a slight chance of winning?
No, I did it because I'm a competitive SOB, and I didn't think that Schumer should win. So half of it was to beat the Republicans. The other half was to beat Chuck Schumer.
Oh, perfect, perfect.
Oh my gosh. Okay, and before we get
No,
going
seriously,
too.
though, and I just want to get a compliment out of the way so I don't have to compliment John anymore. I saw talent, straight up.
That's that's
Oh.
that's the
That's
nicest
it.
thing you've ever said to me, Rom. That's the
And that's
nicest thing
the
you've ever said.
first and last time it's gonna be done, John.
I gotta tell you, we're already at least 2 minutes into this. You haven't made any comments about me missing any fingers, and
Yeah.
and you gave me a compliment of actually having a little bit of talent. I like that. I like that a lot.
Well, I mean, you
I'm
guys
having
both have had
I too, Marissa, I'm having an out of body experience.
you
Complimenting
are.
John's hard.
Yeah. Well, I understand that, and I do know that you both have bad, history with fingers and meat grinders and meat slicers, so you share that in common. Both of you. I do have to know though, and we'll just get this out of the way. Ambassador, is it true that you've never dropped an F word in an interview? Because I gotta tell you, this
No.
program is usually full of F bombs.
No, you looking. Let's wait a second. I've been a mayor, I've been an ambassador, I've been a chief of staff, and I have been a congressman. At no time has either the FCC or C-SPAN had to use the pause button I speak. Now, you get me behind closed door when we're negotiating legislation or trying to get somebody to do something. I've been occasional to be extremely higher than my 5'8" and more in the Johnson format, but and I've used every letter and every word in the English language, but I have never publicly done it. But I'll tell you a funny story. So my wife, Amy, comes from a small town in Ohio, and her parents, late parents, were both, Ohio Republicans. We'll forget what wing of the party. And after every kind of Sunday show, when I was Obama's chief of staff or something, Mary, my mother-in-law, would always say, "Oh, you did so wonderful." I said, "Mary, I didn't do wonderful. You don't agree with a single thing I said. You're just happy I got through 10 minutes that you didn't have to explain at the country club what I said and why I used the F word. So it was the longest 10 minutes of your life, Mary. So but I've never done it. Never.
John
Is
can't say the same.
Now, is Mary still alive and kicking?
No, No, they both passed away, and they were wonderful in-laws. Wonderful.
Yeah. Well, that's
Okay.
But
uh,
this
Yeah.
podcast will be a test. I can always break my winning record.
Well, yeah, we could make some news here. We could make some news,
No,
Ambassador. So
no.
here's the deal. We usually go through a few headlines first, and then we'll get into some questions for you. So I'll just start here. Senator, are you ready to go over some headlines?
Let's rock. Let's go.
Okay, so we have some news in mail in voting today. A judge just ruled that the USPS can move ahead with new rules to restrict mail in voting, at least for now. There is a strong chance, of course, that parts of this executive order from President Trump will be blocked at some point, possibly even today. And that executive order actually calls for the USPS to track mail in ballots and potentially reject certain ballots if the person who submits them is not on this master federal list of eligible voters. There are a whole lot of challenges to this. So let's get your reaction. Who wants to start?
Well, but my reaction is who made up the list? Is this a list of Republican only or Democratic only voters that they're going to kick off if they have a chance to vote in Democrat? This is and excuse me, Ron, for saying this is total bullshit. The fact of the matter is, if you're gonna have elections, you encourage people to vote. You don't deny them the opportunity. Otherwise, democracy doesn't work. And that's really the bottom line. This president is not concerned about the democracy at all, and he don't give a shit about anything but his own bank account. That's just my opinion, Rom. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, well, I don't. As I've always said, there is, the three qualities that describe this president is chaos, cruelty, and um, the sense there's a chaos element, there's a cruelty element, and there's a corruption element. So I 100% agree with you, John. I'd also say, look, the one thing that's the difference between democracies and authoritarian governments is that voters can hold elected officials accountable. And the president's entire tenure is in every way to make sure that he's never held accountable. And the Republicans in Congress have done everything in their power to make sure he's never been held accountable by being a rubber stamp. And so this element of this decision, this executive order on voting, is to restrict actually the level of accountability on his corruption. That's what it is. It's not there's not corruption over here and the democratic process over here. By restricting voters, he wants his greed and his corruption to continue, his chaos and his cruelty to continue.
And I'll just say this for everyone out there. I mean, states administer elections. It was designed that way for a reason. And I will also say, reporting on the United States Postal Service a lot in my career, they are already strapped. They have enough going on. I can't imagine how they would handle something like this. So we will move on to the next headline, which is the escalating
Can I
trade.
say one thing? Since
Yeah, of course.
we focused on Trump. The courts, mainly the Supreme Court, because the lower courts, I give the judges a high five. The lower courts have never missed an opportunity to not miss an opportunity to screw up the democratic process, from money to counting ballots and to who gets to vote. And if the court sits there befuddled, not sure why people hold them in such low regard, maybe they should consider the opinions they're issuing.
Fair point.
Senator?
Amen, brother. That's why I like Rahm Emanuel. When are you going to file for president, Ron? Did I jump ahead? Did I jump ahead?
Yeah, you're jumping ahead.
Wait, wait a second. Do I get to wear that baseball cap you're wearing?
Yeah, you're damn right. I'll send it to you. If you
Can you wash it
announce,
first? Can you
I'm
wash
not gonna
that
wash.
thing first?
I'm not gonna wash it. God damn it! You get to wear it. You get to wear it. You get to wear it. And be a dirty farmer just like me.
It has way too many, tester body fluids on it, man. I can't handle
Yeah.
all that.
But
Yeah.
if
Hey,
he
John, I got an image to handle. Okay.
Well, we're gonna. Hey, look, you put this hat on. We just upgraded your image, Ron. I mean, you're.
Yeah, that could be true.
It's a fact.
Although-
I said, go ahead.
if John sends you that hat, you want to make any announcements today, Ambassador? Like if he promises to send you the hat, we could make an announcement.
We only got X time. Let's not waste it. Let's go.
Now,
Okay.
here's really the bottom line. he doesn't even have to announce. If he wants the damn hat, I'll give it to him. I mean, because that's just I'm a giving person. I'm a giving person.
Yeah, I'm a
And,
giver. You're not a taker, John. You're a giver.
that's right. I'm a giver, and I'm gonna have to get your address after you get off the blower here, and I'll.
Okay.
I mean, it
Oh
comes
my
from
God.
it comes from a sports shop in Butte that's not even open anymore, so it's kind of a collector's item. So people on eBay probably make millions. Yeah.
Okay, I do want to. Let's get at least one more headline in. I was going to talk about the president threatening to rename Lake Ontario to Lake America, but let's move on because there is a bigger story right now, which is that MS Now is reporting today that there is a rise in service members actually asking for help to leave the military as conscientious objectors, and they are citing concerns over violations of international law regarding the strikes on alleged drug boats and targets inside Iran. One service member who talked to MS Now said that they were ordered to support Operation Epic Fury and against Iran, and they believed the US military was targeting civilian infrastructure, violating international humanitarian law as defined in the Geneva Conventions. So I just want to get both of your takes before we move on to whether or not Ambassador Emanuel is running for president in 2028.
Go ahead, Ron. You can go first, and
Okay.
then I'll just say
John
I'm
knows
with
it.
him.
Look, when my son left college, he enrolled, when he graduated, he enrolled in the Navy as an intel officer. Spent 7 years. My middle child is a Navy reservist. My older one, when he's done now 7, he's a Navy reservist. And I believe, I've said this before, in public service. Doesn't have to be the military, but the military, the people that volunteer for the branches of our armed forces are the true 1%. They give. It's not about how much of wealth they've accumulated, it's how much service they have given to others and to the nation's principles. Nothing this president touches does not end up being politicized, and another example of us ripping each other apart as a country. I don't know this MSNBC report, so I'm a little leery about commenting on the report, but you can comment on the fact that the one thing I will comment on, take a look at what Secretary of Defense Hegseth has done to the leadership of the armed forces. I happen to think the U.S. Armed Forces is the best example of the greatest turnaround in American history. When you think of the post-Vietnam armed forces to where it is today, and I worked as ambassador and as chief of staff with the best of the best. They were leaders, they were diplomats, they were strategists, they were scholars. They were the best of the best and of what we had to offer, and they came from all parts of America. They are the example of what meritocracy means and how we value that. And both Secretary Hegseth and our president, known for his bone spur, have just basically ruined that. So, like getting rid of recently the Secretary of Army, or Amy and I set up a scholarship for Lisa Franchetti, the former CNO of the Navy, for kids out of Chicago that are going to college. It was the Lisa Franchetti Scholarship. 12 kids a year are in the ROTC. They have literally politicized the leadership. It's not based on merit. It's based on loyalty to Hegseth and the president. So I don't know this report, but I do know the last 18 months of how they have taken one of the last institution in America that Americans of all faiths and beliefs and political characters and stripes have supported and have diminished it and degraded it. And their legacy will take us a generation to fix.
Yeah, look, I don't know how you can follow that. You're absolutely spot on, 100%. I do just want to comment about the people that they purged out of the military and the leadership ranks. They have really, I mean, Rahm said it right. These folks are brilliant people that knew what was going on, and they got rid of them because, quite frankly, it has been proven time and time again, this president doesn't want people smarter than him around him. And so he's found a bunch of people. I know it was pretty hard to do, but he found a bunch of people who weren't very smart to put around him. And the top of that list in my book is the dude that's the Scotch drinker that's the Secretary of Defense by the name of Hexel.
So, I mean, I want to jump in here. Look, I sat in the room when head of the Joint Chiefs, Admiral Mike Mullen, disagreed with the president, and the president welcomed it. Didn't reject it, didn't fire him, didn't ice him out. I saw him on major policy things. They're judgment calls. There's no right and wrong. They're how you weigh equities. I dealt with Lisa Franchetti, the CNO of the Navy, when I was ambassador. I saw the Secretary of Army that they just got rid of, who was a gem, not just as a person, as a strategist who saw the future. They eliminated a unit he created to figure out the future of drone warfare. What about the war in Ukraine and Iran tell you that unit should be eliminated? The quality of people, Secretary Hegseth doesn't hold a candle to these people, and he is too insecure with too many of his own personal problems to allow quality to rise. And he is now taking a personal vendetta against the leadership who are truly represent the best of what a merit system can produce from literally all walks of life, whether that's C.K. Brown, the former head of the Joint Chiefs, to, as I said, Lisa Franchetti, to the Secretary of the Army. I think there's 20 other people in leadership in the Navy that have all been let go. This represents why Russia's losing the war, because they politicized their armed forces. It was about who could kiss up, not who could actually stand up. And we're doing that to our armed forces. And it's a travesty. And Hegseth's record and his legacy, with the blessing of the commander-in-chief, will take a generation to fix in the same way that it took a generation after Vietnam to fix.
100%, 100% correct. That is a fact.
So
Making America not great again, but making America weak.
Yep.
Ambassador, I want to ask you kind of a little bit in that vein. I mean, we have heard concerns over moving the aircraft carrier up to the Middle East about what it will do when we look at tensions with China and Taiwan. And you became the first U.S. ambassador to visit that small island just 68 miles from Taiwan. And so I'm wondering what we as Americans kind of watching this from afar and watching what happens next, what do we need to know about right now when we're kind of
This is in real time. Look, deterrence is a psychological state of mind of your opponent. And China has seen America in Iran. They've now seen Donald Trump do what he recently done with South Korea, where we have thousands upon thousands of Marine and other branches of the armed forces, but Marines are a leadership there, an army. They have witnessed China intimidate Japan, the long pole of our Indo-Pacific policy, in and around the Senkaku Islands. They fired a missile that could be nuclear armed from a submarine. They have just signed a military pact with Indonesia, and they're being more aggressive, not only against Taiwan, but Philippines, which is a treaty ally, in the Spratly Islands and the other islands in the South China Sea. There is not a single ally of the United States in and around the Southeast Asia and the Indo-Pacific that they are not taking aggressive action. And every one of our allies is watching what the president has done, not only in Iran, but his bullying of South Korea. And China, you don't have to wait. They're doing it now. As we sit here and talk, China is taking advantage of Secretary Hegseth and President Donald Trump's degradation of our deterrence. Everything, like just take Korea. What is it about North Korea's 50 nuclear weapons that you think they're a friend and a democracy, an ally of the United States, where you are committed by treaty to defend with, I think, 38,000 U.S. servicemen? What is it that you have just done in the two military practices that sends a signal of deterrence? He is welcoming military aggression, both by North Korea. Russia just finished major exercise off the Kuril Islands in northern Japan that they stole after World War II. Every element in the United States is, under Donald Trump, is MIA. Philippines, South Korea, Japan, Australia, Taiwan, and you can see Indonesia's decision on a military pact with China is because they don't trust the United States anymore. It's just, you don't have to wait. It's happening. The degradation of our deterrence and the credibility of our word and our actions speak volumes.
Senator?
Well, look, if that doesn't keep you up at night, nothing will. The truth is, as I've said for a while, as we focus on a war of choice in Iran, it has allowed China to do whatever the hell they want in the Pacific. And there, as Rahm pointed out, it sounds to me like they're doing it. And he knows a hell of a lot more about this stuff than just about anybody you and I talk to.
Everybody, the down here in America, or back here in America, we have this conversation. Oh, 2027 Taiwan. What are you talking about? 2027? What was it that China did on the Senkaku Islands and the economic coercion against Japan? What Russia just did in the Kuril Islands? What China just did to the Philippines on the Spratly Islands? What they did to Vietnam in the South China Sea, and what they did to Australia? What was it that required you to wait for 2027? They know the United States is distracted. They know the United States is now degraded its deterrence, and they know the United States word can't be trusted to their allies, and they're taking advantage of it in real time.
So
And not only that, hold on, Mertz, I'm on a run.
no, you're good. You're good. You're good.
I mean, and not only that, have you heard a peep, a sound from the Republican House or Senate? Nothing. Zero. And what do they expect? The very kids you talked about on the Abraham Lincoln, or the 50,000 plus kids in and around Okinawa, or the 38,000 kids in South China Sea, to represent and defend after the commander-in-chief has abdicated his responsibilities to the credibility of the United States. Come on. This is worse than junior varsity. It's an abdication of responsibility as a commander-in-chief to the men and women who he thinks Corporal Bone Spurs are suckers for signing up, like John McCain, what he said. And I have so little respect for what this president has done, and so little respect for John's former colleagues who sit around and call huff, 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 tough, and they've let the president degrade our deterrence and the credibility of our word to our allies with not a peep or a sound from them.
Well, Rahm, I did hear a peep out a couple of them. They said, we can't do anything to stop them, to which I would recommend, if you really feel that way, you should resign and get somebody in there that knows how to read the Constitution, because the Constitution lays out pretty clearly how you can stop a president that's out of control.
I will say this. I said this to a Republican senator, I'll just, without saying the name. I said, you know why you want a Democratic president? So you could have your manhood back. Because you guys have lost your vocal cords and your manhood and your spine. I've never seen a biological test like this.
So how do we get, like, when we talk about, jokes aside, when we talk about the next president of the United States, one of our loyal followers from Australia actually put this question in the chat. How will the next president repair the damage that's been done, not only here in America, but to our reputation globally with our allies when we talk about Canada or any of our European allies or around the world?
May I go first, or John, you want to go first?
No, I think you should. Being a former chief of staff, Rom, I'm going to tell you, I'll just say this. I don't know how the next president fixes all these problems. I don't know what it will take. You may.
Well, one is, I think you got to start by leveling with both the American people and our allies. This is going to be a generational effort. If you're looking for instant gratification, look somewhere else. When it comes to, it takes you a lifetime to earn trust, and it takes you one lie to break it. And so what I would say to you is, both by word and by deed, we're going to have to earn back a level of respect, credibility, and deterrence as it relates to being a good ally with credible deterrence on the economic, political, and military front, and be able to understand what we can do and what we need our allies to do. And we're going to have to be upfront and honest. And it's not about walking around in some weird testosterone testing theory of what manhood looks like. Our military leadership is the best in America because it's best in the world, because it's been tested. It's used on the value of merit, and it's proven to be multidimensional, not just about military, but there's a diplomatic part to it, a political front to it, a leadership front to it, a caring part to the men and women that you are responsible for leading effort. And I've seen it up front as ambassador and as chief of staff. But this is a generational repair work. I use the Vietnam metaphor because I really do think when you go, a lot of people at Harvard Business and Stanford Business want to study, oh, this turnaround, that. When you look at where the armed forces was post-Vietnam, and then you go 30 years later to where we were after the Gulf War, using that as one point, it was a most impressive turnaround in the history of the United States, public or private. It took a broken leadership, broken entity, both morally, culturally, etc., and built it from the ground back up. It took a generation plus. That's what it's going to take for the United States, not just our military, our economic statecraft, our political persuasion, and our cultural attraction, which are the other tools in our national security toolbox. And so, Mirza, when you say like, I know the question, but there's not like that. That's what we're going to do for trust.
Right, right,
It's not
right.
going to, it's not, I know you weren't asking that, but it's not the thing. We're going to be tested, and our word and our deed are going to have to reflect our credibility and our desire for being credible. And it's going to take work, full stop.
So can I ask a real quick question, Marisa?
Well, you're the co-host of this podcast, Senator, so I hope you ask more than one.
Thanks for reminding me. So you're talking about the military, Rahm.
Yeah.
Most of our strength in this country, shouldn't say most, but a fair amount of our strength has come from our allies, and this president has pushed most of our allies away and embraced dictatorships around the world. How long is it going to take to get our allies back, or will they ever come back?
Oh, no. Look, they will come back, but I agree. So they will come back, one. Two, our allies are a force multiplier on the economic statecraft, on the political capacity, and on the military. That's a fundamental disagreement with the Trump administration that, as I like to say, punches down and likes to kiss up to Xi and Putin. He has some weird sense of getting their affirmation from those two, of all the people you want to be liked by. And our allies want America in the game. Now, I have been in and out of the Oval Office for 8 years around the Resolute desk. Unless somebody's done something, there is no reset button on the Resolute desk. You don't hit reset. You got to, like, when I left Israel, I went to Berlin and I laid out a new strategy for NATO, from common defense to collective deterrence. One of the 4 planks was that we need to deal and set up protocols around these gray zone attacks on NATO allies. Otherwise, Putin's going to keep going. Now, if you look at the news that's happening out there, since that speech in June, Russia's attack on Germany, Latvia, Estonia, Poland, Romania has only continued and accelerated. But having a new forward-looking mission, our allies will focus on that. The United States owes the alliance, owes ourselves, and owes them a new agenda, as I said, from common defense to collective deterrence, the gray zone attacks, set up protocols that are clear so Putin understands you cross this line, like blowing up a plane in Germany at Leipzig's airport. Here are the consequences. And then execute when he does it. We've never actually led NATO to promulgate a set of gray zone protocols.
Mm-hmm.
And he has accelerated since 3 years ago. And trust me, given his failure in Ukraine, he is going to expand this war into Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, Romania, Poland, or anything east of the Danube.
Your mic's open, Senator.
Well, yeah, I mean, what can I say? Like I said,
Wait, this could be the third time John agrees with me. I'm like, I'm sitting on my edge
well,
of my
I mean,
chair. We've had more yeses out of Jon Tester than I've had in 20 plus years of friendship. Go, John. Let it go,
no,
baby. Come on, it's gonna make you feel good, brother.
I would love to say, you know what, Rom, as usual, you're full of bullshit.
Yeah,
The truth is you're not, and I wish you were. Okay.
I know,
I,
it was
I
easier
wish,
when I was your chief of staff, you could always yell at me.
yeah, exactly. I wish I could say, Ron, you're so far off base on this. You just don't know what the hell you're talking about. Because the truth is you're not, and that's what's really scary. It's what most people. I mean, it's what most people who are out driving their tractor on a Wednesday afternoon, they're not thinking about any of this shit. And this makes this country so much more unsafe.
Mm.
And it's because we've got somebody in the White House who doesn't know what they're doing.
Look,
Period.
the truth is, if you're out cutting hay, raising cattle, Angus, that's in Montana a lot, you shouldn't be worried about this, but you should have and the reason you shouldn't is you should have the confidence that somebody that you've hired to do the job is worried about it. And that's not the case now. And you know it, I know it, and everybody listening to the show knows it.
Well, it's just one of the reasons you want to get rid of mail-in ballots and keep people from voting.
Yeah,
Jesus
it's
Christ.
true. Can I say one thing that you didn't do, Maritza,
Yeah.
when I thought you were doing headlines? I have been the first advocate, and others have agreed, and they've given their variation, of banning kids 16 or younger from having access to social media
Oh,
like Instagram, etc. We
the
now
Meta
have
lawsuit.
yeah. Well, one, Meta lost 2 cases that went to the jury, so they decided $18 billion, it's a cheaper price than going to the jury. They're 0 for 3, strikeout, done. 0 for 3, they're over. But that's the financial reward, having lost a generation of kids to addiction. One, these guys are worse than the tobacco companies
Mhm.
because they knew and they lied that this was not addictive. It is addictive in their own words, in their own internal documents, just like the tobacco companies. Prove it. My view, give the kids in Illinois and Montana and across this country, like the kids in Australia, France, Germany, UK, ban access until 16 where you have the moral foundation and the educational kinda growth to handle an algorithm. I'm not for turning over adolescents to algorithms. I want adults raising kids and educating kids. I don't want an algorithm. And so you didn't ask
Even
about anything. I
then,
just what?
yeah, no, I think it's a great story. I didn't hit on it just to get into our conversation, but it's a great point, and
No, it's okay.
even
Yeah,
after
I know it's
I was gonna say even after 16, adults can't handle the algorithms. I mean, we're all in some ways addicted to our phones, right?
that's a separate subject. Yeah, well, there is a you gotta mess with that algorithm so it doesn't just feed you the same crap over and over again. It's gotta feed you counterintuitive stuff as well. Anyway, that's a separate
Well,
story. I really wanna get that
Ambassador,
because that yeah,
yeah, I know that
yes,
education is very important to you, and I know that,
yes,
the future of our kids' future is very important to you, and I wanna get into that in a few minutes, but I do wanna ask you, you mentioned your speech in Tel Aviv, and so I wanted to, yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because we're seeing a lot of infighting in the Democratic Party, obviously, and I know we have a lot to talk about there, whether it's the moderate wing versus the progressive wing or opinions on Israel and Gaza. And your recent comments in Israel really made a lot of headlines, both here and abroad. And you gave a pointed speech about the future of our relationship, the U.S. relationship with Israel. And you basically said that Netanyahu has led the country into a dead end, and you called for a 23-state solution that features both Palestinian dignity
mm,
and Israeli security. So I'm wondering if we can unpack that, how that plays out, because for many
yeah,
voters, this is their single issue as we head into 2026 and
well,
beyond.
yeah. Well, look, I've been fortunate enough in my life to work on Middle East peace with President Clinton and President Obama. That's A. B, I believe in that. C, I think the alliance is important. There are other people that don't believe in the alliance and don't believe in the state of Israel. I don't. That's not where I'm at. But more of the same is not healthy. We're at a tipping point. You can't continue the alliance as is. Fourth, I do think the prime minister has led Israel into a dead end and that its pariah state, economically and politically, is unsustainable for a country of 9 million. And as our principled ally in the region, that's unacceptable to us. As I said in Israel, Japan has an 83% approval rating in the United States. NATO has a 63%. You're at 20%. And we're the only one that uses our veto at the UN for you. How long do you think this is sustainable politically? And we're your political number one ally. It's not. Now, 2, or rather 5, the two-state solution, there's no political support. I get that. But as I talked to President Clinton pre the speech, align the politics up of the Arab world's desire for stability with Israel's desire for security and the Palestinians' desire for sovereignty. Stability, security, sovereignty. And make the politics work for the policy. The 23-state solution was Saudi Arabia's proposal. They called it 21, which is all 21 Arab nations would recognize Israel, full diplomatic relations, peace for the Palestinians. So give the Palestinians Israel, so it's 23. So I said to the Arab world, game on. It's your idea. I'm for it. Now, get your shoulder to the wheel. Don't throw the Palestinian problem onto my lap. You have to stand up a partner that has to be able to negotiate and take yes for an answer. Israel has a right to be cynical because 3 times when the Palestinians were offered 98% of what they wanted, they not only rejected it, they didn't come back with a counterproposal. They came back with violence. And guess what? You do that 3 times to somebody, they get pretty much like, okay, you're not a real partner. And that's what happened. And that's on you and the Palestinians. Stand up a partner that knows how to say and take yes for an answer. 2, Israel's got to stop doing things like intimidating housing and preparation and allowing the violence by a bunch of settlers. And the prime minister, by sitting there, it's only about 100 people. Well, these are 100 people creating a lot of violence across the West Bank. And your government officials are perpetuating it. So I'm going to sanction them all. Every one of them. Not only the settlers, the government officials involved. You are not to unsettle, or more importantly, undermine the eventual peace agreement. But to the Palestinian leadership, you have been corrupt. When you get 98, John's been a legislator, I've been a chief of staff, I've been a legislator. Nobody gets 98% of what they want. Not even Amy when we have an argument. I usually say yes about 97. I'm serious about this. They got 98% of what they were offered at Camp David under President Clinton. They said no, and what they do? The Intifada and violence. No, you come back with a proposal, you knucklehead. You can't turn around and say no and respond with violence. That's no partnership. But make it work so the Arabs get what they want, which is stability in the region. 2, Israel gets the security they have sought since the 1948, the creation, and the Palestinians get the dignity out of sovereignty. But the other thing is, I said in Israel, if you're not for this, on those merits, let me give you another reason. It would be the single worst day in Iran's life. That Israel will be welcomed into the region as a full member of the Middle East. And if you're not convinced on the merits of peace, you're not convinced on the merits of your own security, that I think this undermines both politically and strategically the West Bank and Gaza, then think of your enemy, Iran. The idea that Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Syria, all the members of the Arab League would give full diplomatic relationship to you, that's Iran's worst day and your best. So that's another political point that you got to put in the quiver.
Senator, do you have any comments? Are you going to say nice things to Ambassador Emanuel again, or are you going to defy him?
I really
No,
hate
he's passed a lifetime of nice things in the last 45 minutes. Don't force him to do that. It's just
No,
out of
no.
character for him.
I will tell you that I think the challenge here is exactly, man, I hate saying this, it's exactly what Rahm said. You don't get 100% of what you want. And the truth is, if you got people at the table that understand that, you're pretty good. In fact, I would say if you got 75% of what you want, you probably did pretty good, you know?
Yeah. Can I add one thing, Maritza? So,
Yeah.
look, in the 90s, Arafat, after Oslo was blowing up buses on Dizengoff in Tel Aviv, etc. In 2000, after President Clinton brought Ehud Barak and Yasser Arafat to Camp David, they got 98%. They did the Intifada too, more violence in Israel. And Israel cracked down. 2007, Ehud Barak, the prime minister, offered another agreement very similar to the Camp David one. Same thing, violence. And I said this in the speech, it wasn't in the text. To all the people in America and around the world who on October 8th, the day after October 7th, 1,200 people were killed, 250 people were taken hostage, and hundreds of women were sexually abused in front of their children. To those that celebrated October 7th on October 8th, you are morally bankrupt people. I have no respect for you, and I have no place for you. And there are people in leadership and families that celebrated October 8th. Now, Amy and I, when I was ambassador, because the UN and others would not sponsor this, helped fund the documentation and research into the sexual violence of men and women in Israel on October 7th. And made sure that that report was heard by the UN because the UN turned their back on all the women and men that were sexually abused. But that's on the UN. To everybody that was cheering in the streets October 8th, killing 1,200 civilians because what? They were Jews? Sexually abusing mothers in front of their children and shooting them? And sexually abusing fathers in front of their children? You're morally bankrupt and you're not worth the time.
I think that is, that leads to a really important point, I think, Ambassador, that I think is missed in a lot of these conversations. Do you have something to add?
No, I'm just getting
Oh, okay.
the lights here are making me very
Oh,
hot. I'm going through midlife
okay,
crisis
okay.
here. It's so
Oh,
crazy.
no, oh, no. Okay, so, I think that, yeah, I think that there are people who say, "I don't understand why we cannot condemn the horrors that happened on October
I don't
7th, while
you don't have
simultaneously
to
condemning the horrors that happened in Gaza."
look, I've said it myself. What happened on October 7th, I'm morally, strategically, politically, and the voters in Israel are going to hold, I think, this government accountable for having done what they did or didn't do rather on October 7th. That said, for everybody around the world, specifically, I'm responsible, fellow citizens in the United States that cheered it on October 8th. That's a great day. You're morally bankrupt. That doesn't mean Israel gets a permission slip for how they prosecuted the war. And everything I just said about what I would say about how they prosecuted war, to everybody that maybe would listen to this and have a different view, I would just they say nothing I said about how they prosecuted this war hasn't been said by the leaders of the Israeli Defense Forces and their national security. That doesn't make you anti-Israel. I don't consider myself that. Listen, 100 former generals of the Israeli Defense Force and leaders of Mossad and Shin Bet, their security apparatus, condemned the government's permissiveness and permission slip for the violence on the West Bank. They called it Jewish terrorism. I never even used that term. I said from the United States perspective, we'll sanction. But nothing I have said in the condemnation of the Netanyahu government, both the prosecution of the war, what they're doing on the West Bank, their refusal to participate in kind of seeing a way forward besides military, hasn't been said by the highest echelons of Israel's security apparatus. And it doesn't make you anti-Israel if you say it.
Senator, do you wanna weigh in on this, or do you wanna move in on, you wanna talk about midterms?
I think we should talk about
You got
midterm because,
you
like,
got 3 or
I
4
think
more questions, Maritza, okay?
Okay, okay, okay.
no,
Go ahead.
my questions are, if we're going to talk about the midterms, is the Democrats win or the Democrats screw it up so Republicans win?
No, no, so, look, there's a law of physics on midterms. 94 I saw it, '06 I saw it when I was chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, 2010, 2018. high energy turnout by the voters out of power. And you've seen that 12.6 million Democrats voted in the primary so far, 8.6 Republicans. Low turnout by the party's voters in power. You've seen that. Independents break 2-1 for the party out of power. You have seen that. We've gone 12 for 12, never lost a statewide so far. So I'm bullish about the House, cautiously optimistic about the Senate, and the category nobody talks about is we are going to make a hell of a lot of gains in what I call the farm team bucket. Governors, attorney generals, secretary of states, state capitals, state legislators. The farm team of coming out of 2026 will pay dividends in 2030, 2028, 2032, 2034. And this farm team system is going to be a massive blood transfusion into the party.
Senator, I bet you like the sound of that, the farm team.
Well, well, it's one thing that we need badly, to be honest with you. So let me talk about a couple races, and I just kind of want to get your your view. We've been talking about Texas for 30 years. Is this the year for Texas in the Senate?
Well, I'll say it this way. I'd rather beat Tellerico than Paxson.
Well, that's pretty
That's
good.
simple.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Do you have concerns over meddling in the 2026 elections? A lot of people have a lot of anxiety about this. What are your concerns? What are you thinking about?
No, I mean, I don't. Anxieties. I think what you got to do is know that the other side's going to try to mess with it, and so you got to double down on getting your voters out. Democrats are energized, so you're pushing an open door, but you got to be aggressive about it. I do think, but I'm not one for sitting around rubbing my hands and sitting there all worried. Yeah, I worry. But the question is, where are you on voter registration? Where are you get out the vote? Where's your voter ID program? Where's your media campaign? And what's our independence operation on that? So now I happen to think this is set up to be what it's supposed to be, a referendum on Donald Trump and the Republicans. And one of the reasons I'm critical of the far, far, far Democratic Socialists is anything that distracts from being a referendum on Donald Trump and the Republicans is a distraction, is political malpractice. Stop it.
And we're seeing that. I don't know what happened to Senator Tester. He set his phone down. I'm going to just put him on mute for a second. But that is one of the things we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of kind of infighting over whether it's the moderate Democrats or the progressive wing, the DSA candidates. I know you said a lot about the DSA candidates along with Senator Tester. How do you kind of coalesce everybody to stop the infighting, to say, like, we're not going to do this?
Well, hold on. First of all, I separate progressives from Democratic Socialists.
Right.
There are two wings, pragmatic wing, progressive wing. We'll have our disagreements about tactics. We don't have our disagreement about work, healthcare, all the other. We'll disagree about what the right policy solutions, but progressives are part of the Democratic Party. The Democratic Socialists are a separate party. 3 weekends ago here in Chicago, they had a party convention. That's a separate party. You're so confident people want to buy and chew your Purina dog chow? I'll see you in November. You're not running in a Democratic primary. This is not an invasion of the body snatchers. You think people want open borders? You think they want to let up prisoners out of prisons? Defund the police? Get rid of the Pentagon? Run in November. You're a separate party. You're not a wing of the Democratic Party. Not a chance. And also, this debate is distracting from the case we want to make and propagate against Donald Trump and the Republicans. Simple. And I'm not for it. So I separate. You can be in a progressive in the party. You may believe this on healthcare where I believe that. But we both all believe in making sure that healthcare is a peace of mind, not a nightmare. How we get there is different. Okay. But the progressive wing of the party is not the socialists, unless they want to claim that. If they do, that's a separate thing. But I do not want right now hold on, just to one thing. Joe Manchin helped pass the IRA for Joe Biden. Senator Nelson in Nebraska helped pass the ACA for President Obama. Democrats winning in red states is how you get progressive legislation done. Because if all you want to do is win areas that you already made blue, midnight blue, you ain't going to get a minimum wage increase. Forget about it. You're not going to get universal pre-K. Forget about it. And I'm not impressed with people winning blue districts. My whole life has been flipping areas and persuading people to become Democrats. All right, I got moment for two more.
Okay. Okay. Well, I will say Senator Tester's back, but I will say this. We've talked a lot about on this show that what works in New York or certain suburbs of Minneapolis or Denver, wherever, it doesn't always work in places like Montana, right? And I hear you and I understand that. And that's a common theme that we talk about here. But you can't deny that there have been some successes with some of these DSA candidates in elections in the last few months. And so I guess the question is, do you think that
I can't.
well, the question is like, do you think that if Dem leaders had a clearer economic agenda or vision that they were putting
Yes.
forward, that we'd see less of this?
Yeah. No, there's no doubt that Democrats, I've been for a year advocating at 6 in 2026 like we did 6 in '06, minimum wage, energy prices, etc. The Democrats should be doing that. You can't beat something with nothing. You got to have something. But let me be really clear about something. If you track the Democratic Socialists, what they are winning is these college towns where kids have earned a college degree but don't get a job commensurate with what they think they should deserve from a salary standpoint. That's what's happening. And there's this great book out that's came out in the spring called Mutiny. And the base of the DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, is college-educated young voters have a lot of debt, living at home with their parents, who are not earning a salary that's on par with the educational attainment they have, and they're angry. They're not socialists, they're angry at a system they feel has turned its back on them. I'm empathetic to
Senator?
the anger, but the answer is not DSA.
Yeah, no, I think he's 100% correct. I think they're looking for something that'll work because the programs that are out there right now. And part of this is on the Democrats. When we had power, we didn't do some things we probably should have done. But they see what's going on. Look, Trump made a whole bunch of promises. I can't think of one besides maybe closing down the border. One that he was successful on. Certainly hasn't lowered costs. Certainly hasn't stopped inflation. Certainly hasn't done anything as far as increasing wages to speak of, especially for the folks who you just got done talking about, Rahm. So again, I don't disagree with you. I do think I do think there has been and there will continue to be a purity test in the Democratic Party that I don't think is helpful to get the kind of majority you just talked about in places that are red or purple. I've said for a long time, if Democrats were smart, they'd give these these Republicans that the party doesn't represent them anymore a place to land. And you do that by talking
Yep.
about things that Democrats don't normally talk about.
Yeah, but let me say one glass half full if I could.
Mhm.
Look, Ed Case, congressman out of Hawaii, beat a socialist. The congressman in St. Louis beat a DSA member, a former member, want to come back. 2 Virginia members beat back socialists. I would also argue that Mikey Sherrill, the New Jersey governor, in the Democratic primary, there were 5 candidates, beat back a pretty far progressive wing. So we did it in Illinois. 3 Democratic socialists went down. So that's not a man bites dog story. That's just a fact. Now you look at the electorate, whether it's Wisconsin, Michigan, etc., and what I call the pragmatic wing is a minimum 50 and as high as 68% of the vote. So you can get all, and you should get all worked up. I do. I don't want Democratic Socialists in the party. I want you to run under your own label, and you're going to get your own verdict from the voters in November. Don't run in the Democratic primary. You're not part of the Democratic Party. And it's not up for sale. It's not being allowed to be taken over. But I'll just say one thing you know from all the votes, whether it's Michigan and Wisconsin, as I said, or other parts of the country, half the electorate in the Democratic primary is pragmatic, not progressive or socialist. I have got
Senator, do you want? Okay, Senator,
No.
final words.
Final word is that when Rahm Emanuel throws his hat in the ring to run for president, if that is to happen, I think he has the skill set that this country needs to rebuild the military, to rebuild our reputation, and rebuild our economy, and make an economy that works for everybody, just not the elite. I'm a big fan,
about
Ron.
time. Somebody
Big
well, I
fan.
appreciate John. The only reason I'm on here is because you're a 9.5 digit brother.
He's a seven digit. Seven
I
digit.
know, but Rom's 9.5.
Oh, you're 9.5. I got it.
He doesn't think much of my meat cutting skills.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Just don't
I
ask him to grind your meat. All right. Thanks so much,
I
Ambassador.
really appreciate the time. Be good, guys.
Thank
hey,
you.
Ross, thanks for being on, buddy. Appreciate your perspective.
All right, Senator. So I know that the ambassador had to leave. You're on the tractor. We have people in the comments saying that you still need to allow the big tent. That the Democratic Party needs to allow the big tent. We heard Rachel Maddow say that. And so, this is going to continue to be one of these conversations as we move forward to November, right? And I know you've had that. All right, you're going to seize. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, no. One more. All right, there you go. You're unmuted. Now you're unmuted. And so, I think that I do think that somebody, I think it was Carol, said we're all angry at the system, and so there's a lot to talk about and about how to move forward. And so, I do think that we will see what happens, but we've already seen some upsets in these races. People angry at the system, angry at incumbents, and people that certainly I didn't expect to losing their races. So I'll leave it there.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're right. I mean, this election is going to be important. If we have a free and fair election, if we are able to get people to push back against some of the issues, and Ron was right, it's about accountability, and the president doesn't want to be accountable. If we're able to get some people to push back, and hopefully Congress will step up at some point in time, then we'll have a free and fair election, and we'll have accountability in government once again, which I think will be really important because it's not there right now. And corruption is the rule of the day.
Yeah, and Ellen is saying that we can't just kick young people out because we've done that, and the people want to be heard, and if you can find a candidate who can reach all factions of this, right, that's going to win because we're seeing it across the country. People who are frustrated with the Democratic Party, frustrated with the Republican Party, and so we will see how it goes. Do you? I didn't even get to ask him about the Oval Office and you. And I didn't get to ask him if it's true that he actually mailed a dead fish to somebody that he was a rival with.
Ah,
Do you know that
I
story?
never heard that one before. So, but I mean, it's Illinois guy. I think he's a Chicago guy. Well, he's the mayor of Chicago. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that kind of fits, doesn't it?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I also want to just say that we lost a legend yesterday in Dolly Parton. She was 80 years old and a very big deal at my house. My dog is actually named after Dolly Parton, and she led with kindness. She led with humor and compassion and empathy, and she will be so missed. This world is a better place because of Dolly. You have any Dolly love, Senator?
I like the music. Coat of Many Colors is my favorite. But she she had a hell of a voice, I'll tell you that. Trust me.
Yes, she did. Okay, well, we are going to let you go. You have a hat. Do you want to tell us about your hat?
No, you can't even see it. It's Fran Johnson's sporting goods, and dude, it's not even it's closed now. It's not even open anymore. I've had this hat for a good number of years, and it's too bad that the small business that went away that was pretty legendary in good America.
And it has a light on it, right? So you can see
But
things?
yeah, the light doesn't work anymore. The battery's dead.
Oh boy. All right. Well,
Yeah, somebody
we
probably
wanna
knows how to change that out, but I don't. You know.
I bet we could figure that out. Yeah, Tester is celebrating. Not only did he turn 70, but he also finished harvest, folks. So we have a lot to
There you
celebrate
go.
here.
Ah,
Yes. All right. Well, we want to say thank you to our guest, former Ambassador Rahm Emanuel. We want to say thank you to all of you who joined us for that conversation. We want to say thank you to Pearl Jam for letting us use their music, and we'll chat again soon.
all right, tally ho.